Good morning, everybody. Hope that you had a good, relaxing weekend. I did. Hey, it's 8 o'clock. I did, except for the fact that um, somehow Saturday night we were at some friend's house, and I was playing with their dog, and I was throwing a bone, and I was kind of trying to chase him and stuff. You know that game that dogs like to play. And somehow I stepped wrong, and my back did something, and I knew it happened at the time, and it just started getting warmer and tighter and stuff. And by the end of the night, I could barely walk. Morning, Mark. I could barely walk, and iced it down, took some ibuprofen, went to bed, woke up the next morning, and it was worse. And you can tell I'm not sitting down for a reason. So anyway, all day Sunday, I'm like going between ice packs and heating pads and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so if you hear my voice change, it's just pain. It's just pain you're hearing. But today is a lot better for sure. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of ice, man. But like yesterday, it peaked around like noon, around lunch yesterday, to the fact that like if you lay down for too long, you can't get up, or if you stand up for too long, it's hard to sit down. You know, it's a transition thing. So you got to keep moving all the time. So I'm standing up. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. But that's not what I wanted to talk about this morning. I had a friend who recently wanted to know what audio interface. He's getting back into it. He's kind of like we all are for the most part, you know, guys that have had careers and now they're coming back to something they've always loved, and that's recording. But technology's changed. If you blink, you know, technology's changing. As a matter of fact, Mark sent me something this morning, and there's an update to Melodyne, which I'm going to take a look at just as I finish my course. So anyway, I'm going to take a look at that. But yeah, technology is always changing. So he wanted to know, what audio interface should I use? And that is such a loaded question because, first of all, do you even need an audio interface? That's a inflammatory question, right? Do you even need an interface? I'm gonna cover that a little bit, but anyway, so I wanted to cover audio interfaces, and I don't have any like slick slideshow presentation. I'm straight up going to do what we would do together if you were and I were sitting together in the same room. I'm going to go to one of my favorite resources, and that's Sweetwater, and we'll take a look at some stuff. I've done a little bit of research because, just full disclosure, I've had an interface for a long time, and I love it. I mean, that's the thing. You know, I don't think there's too many bad choices on mics now and interfaces, because all of them are pretty good. They're all designed to, you know, get you going. But do you even need an interface? So that's one question. Well, I mixed. If you looked at crosspoint.com/live and you listened to all the music that we did this past weekend, yeah, it would be just this past weekend. That's when they started. I've been recording worship sets, or Mark has been recording worship sets, and I've been mixing them, and we've been mixing them all in Reaper, which is, I covered that a little bit last weekend, but I mixed all of that with no interface at all, which means basically I plugged my headphones into my laptop and mixed it on those headphones. So did I need an interface? It really just depends on what you want to do with it. Now, output, do you need an interface? Sometimes you don't. It's more convenient, and interfaces will do. Interfaces they come packed with things that make things convenient, like an external volume knob, an external VU meter, things like that. So I mixed the whole thing without an interface. Now, if you want to send out multiple headphone mixes, like if you're working with an artist and or you're working with another musician and you want to send them a separate headphone than you, or send them headphones at all, there's only a headphone output on this computer, right? There's ways to make it work. There's a ways to make it work, I guess, but that's when you start needing an interface, is when you start when you start needing to loop more people in. More people need to hear the headphone mix. And then, yeah, an audio interface would be kind of convenient. There's still ways around it though. Like you could still run your output here through a headphone amp. Still not the most glamorous thing. And sometimes with the prices of some of these interfaces that I'm going to show you this morning, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it to buy an interface, but you don't need an interface to get started. That's one of the things I'm really super bad at. And I think a lot of people who are unsure about how to go forward here, they think they need to buy another plugin or need to buy an interface or they need a microphone. And what this whole last 2 months has showed me is that the stuff that you're thinking about starting and doing, you really had everything you needed. You just needed some time, right? Time to work out some of the details, right? If you agree, let me know in the comments. But so do you need an interface? It depends on what you're wanting to do. If you want multiple headphone outputs, yes, you probably need an interface. If you're just mixing on headphones, probably don't need an interface. And I believe in keeping it simple as you can. Now, on the other end, putting things into your computer. Now, this is where the interface line comes a little sooner, right? Because are you playing virtual keyboards? Then you probably just need, drag and drop loops, whatever. I have a control surface that I hooked up to Reaper, and it's really, really convenient. But do I need it? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You do need it, however, to get things into the computer, like audio signals, like your voice. You can use the mic on your MacBook Pro. It sounds not terrible. What the bad part is the acoustics of the room, how far you are from the microphone, the equipment noise of the computer. If you've got your fan running on it, that does help it. But if you want to throw it on a scratch vocal or a demo or something like that, and you want it to be, intelligible, where you can actually tell what you were doing, your MacBook is okay. So do you need an interface for that? It depends, not necessarily. Where people start needing interfaces is when you start using like guitars, or if you have an external keyboard that you want to play. So you've got a Roland keyboard hooked up, and you want to just record the audio from it, not the MIDI, but the audio, plug it into an interface and put it right into your computer. You can still do that on some older MacBooks because they have a microphone input, but you can't do it on the newer ones without an interface. And the interface being anything that gets an audio signal to a digital signal, which I suppose you could probably buy this like a 1/4-inch jack that goes straight in there, but that's still an interface, right? Okay, so I'm gonna walk you through a couple of interfaces. The first one starts at $199. Let me share my screen here. I'm just going to go to the Sweetwater page here and show you this Audient. Audient. I don't know if it's an ID4 or ID2, ID22. These little interfaces, look at this guy right here. It's 199 bucks. And this is plenty enough to get you in because you've got a microphone input and you've got a DI input, and then you've got a monitor. You can mix between, this is a low latency thing. So you can switch between the input or sweep between the input, which is your mic or your guitar, i.e. no latency, to the DAW, which is your headphone mix, right? So in your DAW, you can just mute yourself, what's coming through, and unmute or fix the input to where you can hear yourself going, and you've got low latency or no latency monitoring. And then you've got volume. So let's look at the back of this guy real quick. So you've got the DI, that's where your guitar would go. Headphones, you got the 1/4-inch or the 35 millimeter plug in. Every set of headphones has this. That's the DI that's on the front of the unit, right? So that's where you would plug your guitar in. On the back of this is where you plug your mic in, or this is another place to plug your guitar in. Or, if you need stereo, maybe not the unit for you. And it connects with USB. Now, I'm not sure if this one, another pretty cool thing would be, and it looks like this doesn't have a power supply. Let's spin this guy around here. It doesn't look like this guy has a power supply, and it's probably powered off of the bus powered is what we call it, which means you don't have to have it hooked up into the wall to get power to it. It actually takes power from your computer and runs it that way. Now, is the audio going to be as good as like an API run through some kind of fancy converter? Maybe not, probably not. But is it going to be something that's going to be a deal breaker? Again, probably not, because really what you have to get to is the thing I have to convince myself of all the time is just get it done. Done is better than perfect. Um, Done is better than perfect. That's one of my wise mentors told me one time, and it's like that's just stuck with me because. And I know I'm not as much of a detailed guy as I need to be, but I know that done is better than perfect. So this might be a good option for you right here. If you're a guitar player and or a bass player and you want to go in there and and sing your vocal into your mic, and then maybe you're playing some MIDI keyboards, this might be a good option for you. And it's $199. That's not bad at all, right? Okay. So this thing, all it really does is it just takes your audio and puts it into your computer. There are other things like that. Like I've got a Presonus. Mine is an older Presonus, and it's straight up 8 mic pre's into into my DAW. But Presonus makes some little, and I don't know, make some. Look at there, USB audio interface, $99, right? It looks like it's got 2 instrument mics, so you could go into the front of that and let's look at the back of that. Oh, and it's got MIDI in and out. So look at this, $100, and you've got MIDI in and out. You've got a main out. You've got headphones out, and look on the front of it, and you've got 2 mic lines. So you could put, your stereo microphones, power those up, and get those going. That looks like a pretty good deal. And I can vouch for Presonus because I've got a Presonus. I forget what it's called, but it's just an 8-channel mic preamp, and it goes light pipe or ADAT, or what would you call it, fiber optic, into my interface that I use a lot, which I'll show you next. Now this is a now we're jumping pretty good here. Universal Audio Apollo. This is the guy that I've got. I've got an older version of it. Come on, internet. I'm on TV. So still not loading. Okay, so here's the Universal Audio. Now, let's see. I've got more like this one here. This guy right here, the Universal Audio Firewire interface. We'll get to that in a minute, but what I want to show you is this guy right here. Now, this Apollo Twin, man, Universal Audio makes some really good plugins and interfaces. If you've heard of the 1176 and the LA2A, they make hardware versions of those that are like pretty much spot on. They're kind of known for that. And then they jumped into this plug-in world several years ago, and now they're jumping into the DAW world, so you can actually go all Universal Audio and record everything into their interfaces, all that kind of stuff. Let's don't go there just yet, but I wanted to show you this. This is a pretty nice little thing, and it's got an added bonus. Let me go straight to the 360 thing here. Save some time. Okay, so there's where you would plug your guitar. There's where you would monitor, and then on the back here, you've got an optical in, so you can actually take that Presonus 8-channel mic pre that I've got, plug it into here, and now you've got not only the line inputs and the mic inputs or the mic inputs, but you've also got, ever how many, like 8 channels of external mic pre inputs. And there's not lightning bolt, Thunderbolt 2 connection here. So, and also here's a line out 3 and 4. So this is where you would plug your monitors, your monitors, and then of course it would be separate from your headphones. But this line out is where you could send a headphone mix to your buddy. The coolest thing about this is the fact that you can buy plugins for this guy. So it's not like the other one where it's just kind of a generic run of the mill mic pre. Let's get the level from here to here and record it into Pro Tools or Reaper, Ableton, whatever you're using. But now there's a thing called Unity on these things, where when you hit the preamp, you can download an API, a Neve, an SSL, anything that you want that character of that, and it bakes it into the sound going in. So it's as if you recorded through one of those high dollar mic pre's, and that's the same for your guitar or whatever. If you wanted to run your guitar through a Marshall stack, then you can run it through the Marshall stack and print it that way. A lot of people don't, though. They'll usually print it and then put the Marshall stack on later, so they can continuously tweak it. Same thing with Universal Audio has auto tune, so you can actually tune your vocals going in. Now the price tag on this one is significantly higher. It's 5 times the price of the one that we looked at first. 4 times. Yeah, I'm not good at math, but I think that's around 4 times what you would pay for the $200 one, right? This one does a lot more, and it looks cool, right? It's got more LEDs on it, so it's got to be worth more money, right? So let's see. Okay, another really popular one, and I'll leave it at this, and then I'll take questions if you have them. And that is the what's it called? The Scarlett. If I could spell Scarlett, 3rd generation. I don't know about which generation, but I know that I work with mixers quite a bit, and this is one that they tell me about often. Here's a 109, 399. This one right here is pretty much the same as it was. Now, Focusrite has a great reputation for being, Focusrite console is like it's the unicorn of consoles, because they only made them for a short period of time, and they were so expensive that it bankrupted a lot of studios. So Rupert Neve designed a lot of the first Focusrite stuff, but they have a pretty good reputation of being a great interface. This is a pretty basic interface, but it's a Focusrite. So if you drive a BMW or a Mercedes or whatever, you may want a Focusrite, because there's a little bit of I don't know. I'm just kidding. You may want this name brand. I don't know. So let's look at the 360. This one looks like it's the monitor, direct monitor, which is that listening to what's coming into this interface and not what's going to your computer and then back from your computer back to the interface, right? So no latency, no delay. When you hear, like when you play your note on the guitar, it plays immediately. It doesn't play, 7, 10, 20 milliseconds later, therefore making you kind of crazy. It's also got this air thing on it, which, it's an EQ sort of thing that really kind of opens up your signal. But I'm kind of curious here, if we were to go back to this 399 one, let's see what the difference is here. And I think the difference is just going to be more inputs. So this one's got 4 inputs. So if you're doing a quartet or a trio or a very small band, and you want to record multiple people at one time, or if you want to record drums, there's perfectly valid ways of recording drums with just 4 channels. I've got a friend who's doing it very well. Michael Rafter, doing it very well. So here's the backside of that. So more inputs. You've still got the 2 separate headphones. So headphone outputs. So on the back of it, we've got MIDI in and out, which is cool. And then you've got 4 line outs. So you could send 4 mono headphone mixes here, or you could send 2 stereo headphone mixes or some variation. And it's also got line input. So you could have keyboards here. So you can see that, this is a pretty cool little unit right here. And it's red. Red is a really, really cool color. One of my favorites. So anyway, I'll take some questions if you have them. That's just a little bit about interfaces of, specifically helping my friend. figure out which interface to use. There's really not a bad one. I mean, just a couple off the top of my head. If you're a guitar player and you just want to capture your guitar into it, Line 6 makes an interface that just has, it goes into USB and you plug your guitar into that. Voila, you've got your guitar into your DAW, and then you can run it through amp SAMs and things like that. So, okay, so let me start at the top here. And so Joseph says you use the Universal Apollo 8P. I don't know what the 8P does. I think 8P maybe 8 preamps, which is basically maybe one up from what I've got. I've got the old Apollo Duo, I think, and it's got four microphone inputs on it. But the first two, I think, are you can use the Unity mode, which is using one of their mic pre's. So I like it. That's what I use all the time. It's what I've been using pretty much exclusively since about six or 7 years ago. So yeah, that's Apollo 8P is a good choice. Plus you've got all the pre's and all the stuff that you can get from there. It's amazing, the quality of the plugins. So Mark says that's what I have. Which one is what you have, Mark? I'm not sure which interface you have. Hey, Steve, you have the 214. That's cool. That's cool. Those are good. Audient makes good sounding interfaces as well. Kurt, I don't know if you got here just after I started that, but yeah, I covered the Audient. That's one of the first ones I covered, and it was $99. It's kind of like a no-brainer deal if you just want to get in. And the good thing about, if you're like, for me, like I've got an interface at my studio, which is that Apollo and the Presonus 8-channel mic pre. I've got the Dante network, which is basically another interface, right? Because I'm using the Yamaha Rio as my input. It's just a long ways away. So as you get these smaller ones, I mean, my laptop, I would love to eventually have a laptop rig where I could record into it. So it's not, I mean, $99 I know is but you can repurpose those things, right? So anyway, Focusrite Sapphire Pro 40. Yeah, that's you're probably one of the guys, Steve, that I heard so many good things about. And Focusrite has such a good name for whatever. So Mark Jacoby, what is the real importance of the DA converters? Are they that important these days? Again, okay, this is kind of a loaded question because it depends on who you talk to. If you're talking to a really guy whose work is under scrutiny constantly, and they're at the top level, the thing about it is like the curve to getting to be a mixer that people want to pay, or a recording engineer that people want to pay, it's a pretty steep curve, and there's a lot to learn on this curve. But when you get to a certain point, I wouldn't even say it's toward the top. When you get to a certain point where you know the basics and you're looking for that next thing to improve, then yeah, I would say that the converters are important. And I have heard it with my own ears. I remember one time when I was recording everything on ADAT. This has been several years ago, and I was working in a studio, and they bought the Otari radar. Well, the Otari radar, they would just record through the radar sometimes, and then transfer it out to ADAT or to files or whatever. And I remember the first time I heard this studio, which I mixed a lot of stuff out of, when I heard the Otari sound, I was like, I called the guy up and I said, what did you do to the sound? And he said, man, I'm running it through the Otari converters. And I'm like, that is astoundingly good. I mean, it was just more open, more punchy. It was like it was almost another studio. So yes, in those cases, the converters are good. But the thing about getting into that game is like, what's better? The C12, vintage C12 or U47. The price to play is, you're talking about $20,000, $30,000 worth of microphones right there just to see which one's better. And then you buy one microphone and and it is better, yeah. But how much better is it? I mean, is anybody going to say, I don't want to go to Kevin's studio because he only has the 53 version of that microphone, and I really like the 52 version. Is that really going to stop people from coming to see you? No, probably not. What they're going to remember is, how they felt in the studio, and how they felt about singing their vocals, and how their vocals sounded in the very end. And is there $20,000, $30,000 worth of difference in these converters? Probably not. Now, when you get to the point where you can tell the difference, then that's when you should start looking at them, in my opinion. So, and that's not saying that I can barely tell the difference sometimes. It was just, I remember I was in such a groove and I was mixing so much that, that I noticed the instant difference in the tracks. So, when you get to where you can tell the difference in those, then I would say do it. But in the meantime, there's so much of the curve to cover. About how to make people feel in the studio, how to get a good performance, how to tune vocals, just some of the basics of stuff. So I wouldn't spend a lot of money to these things, but Focusrite and Audient, they make it pretty easy because it's great interfaces for not a lot of money. So so that's good. Chris Crunk says, I'm very happy with the Apollo 8. Since getting it, my mixes translate better and everything I've tracked has sounded great. Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with that Apollo. Anything Apollo, anything Focusrite, probably anything Audient. Even Personas is good. But yeah, I'm a fan of the Universal Audio stuff just because you can get into it pretty cheap, pretty inexpensively. I need to turn my notifications off, I guess. You can get into it pretty cheap, but then from there, you can then, what does your bass sound like run through an Ampeg? Well, you can test it, and you can actually print it, and you can, print the drivers and use it later if your computer doesn't, or, well, I'm going to say that because the one of the reasons that this universal audio stuff is a little bit more expensive is because there's enough processing going on in the physical unit itself that so your computer is not having to process all that stuff. If it was, you might say it's not worth it because it slows my computer down, or my computer starts crashing, or there's glitches now recorded into it, or playing back, or it's unreliable. Well, with the universal audio stuff, you get all those plugins, and the unit, the box itself, actually takes care of most of the processing. So it might be pretty cool. Chris says, yes, I started with the Twin and still have it part of my system. So expandability. So when you buy, a decent mic pre or a decent interface like this, especially like the Apollo or something that's expandable, then I just really think it's a pretty good call. And even the resale value of them, especially if you sell some of the plugins that you purchased along the way and you give them the license with the interface becomes a little bit more, worth a little bit more. I haven't sold a bunch of these, so I can't really verify that with my own facts. But I don't think you can go wrong with universal audio. That's mine. That's what I use. So I like it. So, and I've never had a need to really change. So anyway, hopefully, for the person I'm creating this for, hopefully that's helped. If you're just tuning in now live or later, hopefully this will clear a little bit of that controversy of, do you even need an interface? I mean, that's to be debated too, depending on what you're doing. I was talking to a friend of mine 2 days ago, and he's an 11-year-old kid that's a great songwriter, and I think he's a songwriter, but he's a musician, and I'm really wanting to prime the pump and get him going. So I turned him on to Reaper, which is a very low entry level price that does a lot of stuff. And he was asking about interfaces, so I'm kind of doing this for him too. But he is a guitar player, so he does need some way to get his guitar recorded into the DOS. But do you need it? I mean, that's to be debated too, I guess. So anyway, so some of what I covered today is kind of a little bit of basic stuff. And if you are, it looks like at least the names that I can see here, you guys have been mixing forever and you know the basics. But if you don't know the basics of signal flow, like how sound is captured into a microphone, how that's converted into an electrical signal, what you need to do to get that electrical signal even into an interface, then I've created a course for you. It's called The Basics. And basically you can find it here. Let me find, I've got a link here. If you go to basics, I cover how sound is captured into a microphone, how it's captured into a direct box, how those signals travel from where they are to your audio interface or your recording console, whatever you're using. I walk through recording consoles and how they work, what things like effect sends, effect returns, everything like that. So if you don't know the basics, don't worry about it. I can show you the basics here. If you go to mixcoach.com/basics. Now, the page that you're going to land on was basically geared for pastors who, the one-man show a lot of times is the one that's doing everything. And sometimes, for example, pastors don't know how an audio board works. And they can't really teach how it works. So I kind of designed this page to be appeal to them, but the content is the same. I will show you all the basics that you need to know that you can build on and know what things are, like impedance. Little things that you hear audio guys throwing around that you might just not want to engage in that conversation because you don't know what they're talking about. Well, this is a course for you. So if you need some help just learning the basics, go to mixcoach.com/basics. Okay. Hey, it's been great hanging out with you guys again this morning. Even though you've heard me like grumble a little bit, it's just my back. It's just pain. That's all. I will do that, Mark. Mark says for future episodes, maybe talk about hard drives, internal or external speed connectivity. That is a great idea, Mark. I'm going to do that. Great idea. Okay, so tomorrow I had another friend that called me, and he wants to know. He wants a crash course in Pro Tools, basically. So I'm going to tomorrow show you the everything. I think everything has an 80-20 rule, and I don't think you have to know everything about audio recording to be a good recording engineer. I think it helps, and I think you will learn that over time. I also don't think you need to know every shortcut that Pro Tools offers to be able to pull off a successful tracking session. And by successful, I mean you've got everything recorded and everybody's still friends, right? So tomorrow I'm going to go over some of my favorite shortcuts in Pro Tools and the ones that he needs basically to get the tracking session done. So hopefully you come tomorrow. It'll be at 8 o'clock in the Pacific time zone. If you're in Nashville, it'll be 10 o'clock. If you're on the East Coast, it'll be 11 o'clock. And beyond that, you'll have to figure it out yourself. Okay. Whatever time this is, minus 32 minutes. Okay. Hey, I've enjoyed hanging out with you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Okay.